Everybody for tuning in once again to Coder Conversations. If you want to catch up on any past episodes, visit us at www.coderconvos.com. Today we have Tim Dadabo. He's been a voice actor for a lot of significant series ranging from Halo to Ninja Turtles and much more. Welcome to the show.
Hey guys, what's going on? Thank you for having me. And just
man.
for clear it cleared up. It's Dadabo.
Dadabo. Okay, gotcha.
That's all right. Hey, I have trouble saying it, and it's my name.
Yeah, even you have trouble saying it. Yeah. Well, thanks. Yeah, we appreciate you coming on tonight, man.
Thanks. I'm honored to have you. Honored you guys are having me.
Yeah, just to get things started, man. You've been in the voiceover industry for quite a while. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Longer than some of you have been alive, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. I looked at your IMDb. I've seen like you've even worked on Septerra Core. That's a old school classic.
Yes, sir. Yeah, but yeah, I started playing those games on my Mac before there was an Xbox. See, that's how far back I go. I started playing that on my Mac, and I started playing Oni on my Mac, and I said, okay, I can see how this is crack cocaine.
Yeah.
And as soon as they released the first Xbox, I went out and got one, and I've been playing ever since.
Oh yeah, man. Gaming, that's my favorite hobby. So like, how did that love for gaming transition into you doing voices for games?
Well, as you may or may not know, you and your audience, Bungie actually started in Chicago, and that's where I'm from. And I had gotten in very well with Marty O'Donnell and Mike Salvatore because I was singing jingles and doing commercials and stuff like that. I was singing jingles and doing voiceovers for commercials. I've done thousands and thousands of projects for commercials. And they said, "Hey, man, come on over here. We want to show you some stuff." And they had just come back from this little thing called E3,
Oh
and
yeah.
and they said, we want to show you some stuff. And he said, I want to show you some footage. He goes, it's super secret. He goes, and this is our music and sound effects behind it. And I didn't know it, but he was showing me the beginnings of Subterracore and Oni. And I said, wow, that's really cool. And he said, yeah, we're going to start, hiring voiceover people from Chicago. And that's how he got me, Master Chief Steve Downs, who was a DJ, Pete Stacker, who played Sergeant Stacker, and Captain Keys. So he just started pulling people in, and slowly but surely, people got wind of this little thing called Halo, and they started coming in from all corners because they wanted to be involved in this groundbreaking technology. And
Oh
here
wow.
we are.
Amazing. So like, is working in video games a little bit different than doing voiceover for a TV or animated series?
Yes and no. It's different in that you often work alone when you do video games, and you do in cartoons is absolutely almost always alone for commercials, but it's different in cartoons because sometimes you get to work with your partners and you get to see each other. The way they can avoid some of that is via what they do is they put screens between you with glass, or they put you in separate booths that face each other. But for the most part, that's the only difference, is that you work alone and you have to be able to perform on your own uh, with a vast variety of emotional scenes, be it very soft and very close to the microphone, death scenes, throw scenes, fight scenes, just conversational scenes, and it's always to no one. So, that can be a challenge, and both a challenge and it's fun. It's basically talking to yourself in a booth. So that's
Yeah.
really the only difference. Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely does sound challenging because you don't have anybody else to leverage the emotion off of. So like, how do they
Correct.
ensure that there's a match there? Say
Sometimes
like,
what they'll do is they'll read the line themselves through the talkback mic, and they'll tell you what's happening in the scene. If you guys have never watched it, it would be a great idea for you to watch the making of Halo 2 on YouTube. And you can see Joe Stanton and Marty O'Donnell giving us scene emotions. Okay, now in this scene, you're doing this. This is what's happening. So to internalize it, and then you go. You perform.
Is it
So
like a documentary?
yes, Yes, I mean it's everything. It's from the development of the game itself to recording the music to writing the music to
Oh, wow.
hiring the voiceovers. It's got all the voiceovers in the booth, myself is included. So it's very very cool. It's called The Making of Halo 2.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, like, when they give you a character, do they give you a bunch of creative freedom, or is it pretty much like we want this exactly and stay within these confines?
Both, really. What they'll say is, "Okay, we got what we got what we needed. Now, what would you do with it?" So we might be able to do that. And they know me. I'm an improver. I went to improv school, Second City, Players Workshop, all that stuff. And so I'm gonna riff, and they know that, and they expect that, and they like that. And I always say, okay, keep it or don't. You know, and
Yeah.
it depends if it fits, if it works, if it made it better or brought it to life. Keep it or don't.
Pretty interesting that you mentioned improv school. I'm sure a lot of people don't realize that such a thing exists. Like, what exactly do they teach at improv school?
Um, the answer is always yes, and that's the essence of it. Um, in improv school, you'll be standing on stage either by yourself or with a partner and someone in the audience. And if it's a teacher, they'll say, "Okay, here's the scene. You are two homeless guys, and all of a sudden you witness somebody comes up to you and they say, 'Hey, if I gave you $1 million right now, what would you do with that? Would you split it? Would you do it?'" He goes, "That's the scene. It's night. It's this, and go." And there's no script. You just go. But you can never say no, no, no. I wouldn't do that. It's always yes, and it's always you always plus it more, 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 and you pile on. And it can be funny. It can be heartbreaking. It can be anything. But it's there's no script. It's unscripted live. Let's call it that.
Nice.
What typically goes through your mind, or do you just kind of go off of emotion or whatever pops in your head at the moment?
Well, it's like the three of us are doing here right now. There's no script. I mean, we're just having a conversation, and it's basically what would you say in this moment? If
Mm.
your partner was saying this to you, what would you say back? And it can never be no, man, I'm not doing that, because then the scene's over.
Right.
You know, it's like, yeah.
Yeah.
And then what if we did this? Or you say, yeah, oh, hey, did you see that balloon? Check it out. And all of a sudden the scene moves. It's always moving. It's like a moving target.
Oh wow, that's really interesting. Like,
It's
do they
hard.
teach?
It's really hard. I mean,
Yeah, I
Yeah,
can
sounds like
imagine.
it.
if you guys ever watch Stephen Colbert or Jimmy Kimmel, or I mean Jimmy Fallon,
Yes.
those guys are masters at the craft. And they
Yeah.
came from Chicago, from the same schools.
Oh, they did. Wow.
Oh
Yes,
wow.
they all went to Chicago. Everybody went. A lot of improvers, a lot of people from SNL came to Chicago, or they went to LA and went to the Groundlings. That's
Okay.
we have Second City, we have Players Workshop, Improv Olympic. We have several big name improv schools in Chicago.
Oh, that's amazing. I think like a lot of people don't realize how much work goes into making vocals just sound organic and natural. Like,
Sure,
so,
sure.
can you speak to a little, a few tips or techniques that really help something sound good when you're improvising?
Um, Listening to your partner. I mean, it's really about listening and internalizing what's coming from your partner and reacting in the moment. And commercials are really not that much different. Yes, you have a script. I mean, of course, if it's this weekend, 99 cents this weekend at McDonald's, how many ways can you say that? But I mean, if it's an emotional commercial, like let's say for a really sexy car, or a hospital thing, or something that's really sensual, or something that's really undertoned, or dark. There's colors to
Yeah.
voiceover. Those are things that you absolutely have to go and internalize and say, when I teach, I ask people, okay, Who, what, where, how, when. Who, what, where, how, when. Who are you? Where are you? How is this going to affect your life and the lives of the people listening to you? When is this happening? All these questions you have to ask, and then you go. So it becomes a real scene. The thing is you might be wrong, but they know that you internalized it and you brought a real performance. It wasn't just spurting out words.
Awesome. So how do you really make sure somebody is bringing out the proper emotion, the proper level of emotion? 'Cause I know, like, especially on podcasts, if you're not taking it serious, it can be easy to sound monotone and just kind of drone on.
Right. Well, I mean, you guys are doing a wonderful job of that right now. You're listening and you're responding. And I think as great podcasters, you have to be able to learn something. You have to listen and say and then say and then what? Basically.
You have to
And
read
I
the
hate to
room.
I
You
hate
have
to
to be able
pimp
to read
another
the room. Yeah.
exactly. I hate to pimp another podcast, but if you guys haven't listened to oh gosh, what's his name? He had the guy that did Dirty Jobs. Mike Rowe. Mike Rowe is great at basically getting a guest on, and it's like they've known each other forever, and oftentimes
Yeah.
they've just met.
Oh, wow.
It's called The Way I Heard It by Mike Rowe, and and it's just a conversation, kind of like what we're having right now.
Yeah, that's something we try to intentionally do. Keep a laid back, more laid back atmosphere, and really deep dive into what our guest likes, and
Yeah,
it's not really easy to do.
no, it isn't. No, it's not. And you have to be able to
Yeah.
pivot quickly, and that, my friends, is what improv gave me. I started
Ah,
going to improv because I was new at this voiceover thing, and I was behind the mic.
okay.
I don't remember the product I was pimping, but I was doing a job, and they said, "Tim, the script is wonderful. You're wonderful, but it's just not working. What else you got?" And I'm like, "What? What? What? What?" They said, "We booked you because when we originally heard you, you were what we heard in our mind, but now that we're hearing it, it's just not working. What else you got?"
It's not working. Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh," and I didn't know what the hell to do. Well, 6 long weeks later after improv, those questions don't even come to you as much anymore because you're always saying, "Hey, let me try this." But, you take more risks. You're able to plus it, and the thing is it makes you pivot and think very quick on your feet. In that class, there was a lawyer in there that wanted to be better in his arguments. There was a doctor in there that wanted to be better with his
Right.
clients. So yeah, I mean, it was all kinds of people that wanted to, get. So yeah,
Interesting. So I know, like,
yeah.
in the act of speaking, sometimes you have like these brain farts, and you can't really think of what to say next. Like, what do you do to kind of break out of that, especially when it's live and you have to come up with something instantly? How do you kind of shake that?
Well, I don't normally live per se, except for if I'm speaking in a panel, let's say, and it's usually answering a question, so it's pretty simple. And I've been doing this so long that there's just there's so many things that run through my mind when somebody asks me a particular question about how did you get into voiceovers, or how do you get to be a better voiceover,
Yeah.
or so it's a lot of it is scripted. For me, I sit back and I say, what's the who, what, where, how, when, and I start reading it until I get what I call the tinglies. And once I know my mic placement and how to make it sound as real as possible, I just let it go. It's either I'm right for it or I'm not.
Oh, interesting. So yeah, you mentioned
Yeah.
that there was that one moment that you faced rejection where they said this isn't what we're really looking for. How did you avoid like letting that rejection kind of overtake?
Oh, I kept the job.
Okay.
I kept the job. We moseyed about a little bit until we found something that worked, and
Right.
honestly, they hired me all the time after that. But it took me working my craft to get better at it. So
How long were you in school?
the first time 6 weeks, then I actually had a lapse of about 5 or 6 years before I went back to improv again. I never did a show. I didn't care to do a show. As a matter of fact, when my instructor says, "What are you going to do for your grad show?" I said, "I'm not doing the grad show." He said, "What? What
Yeah.
do you mean you're not doing the grad show?" Do. He said, "What do you mean?" I said,
Yeah.
"I just wanted to be a great voiceover man. That's why I got
Right.
into this. I have no
Right.
inclination to become a stage on camera actor." I said, "That doesn't interest me in the least." I said, "I love doing voiceover, and that's all I want to do." He's like, "Okay."
Yeah.
Well, I went back about another 6 or 7 years later, and I went to IO. It's called Improv Olympic in Chicago, and I spent the whole summer. I did it again, and they said, "Do you want to do the grad class?" I said, "Nope." I said, I was just having
Yeah.
fun, filling the summer
Yeah.
constructively in classes, and I still take,
That's cool.
voice lessons and stuff like that. So I keep at it.
How exactly do you stay on top of your craft just so you kind of stay ahead of the competition and you're the go-to guy? Like you mentioned the classes. Is there anything?
Listen a lot. I really do. You got to listen a lot. It's like being a fashion designer and just saying, "Yeah, I'm only going to make this one style,"
Right.
and that should carry me through my whole career. No,
Yeah, no.
you got to keep the suit with the wide lapels because eventually those wide lapels will come back. You know, so it's the
Yeah.
same thing. It's like everything is cyclical. Very different from when I first started. I mean, they were big and bombastic back a long time ago, and now they're not. It's almost radio DJs. So and now they're just you. It's just you having a conversation with you know 20,000 of your best friends.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, that like the eras kind of had different sounds, like the broadcaster voice, and now it's just living room sound. Like, what was your favorite era, or do you not particularly for any of the eras?
It's funny. Guys. I really like to just live in the now. And this is a great time to definitely AI is starting to creep into the business a bit. Fortunately or unfortunately, fortunate into it and use it. Unfortunate for people who make their living doing this.
Yeah.
But the time that is now is such a great read. It's such a warm read. It's such a for so many commercials. I just Nissan, and it was for their new truck, and it was just a great read. You could tell it was a guy just leaning into his microphone, and he was just kind of talking about the car, you know,
Yeah.
like a guy leaning next to you at a bar, leaning in your ear, telling you about his new car he just bought.
Right.
And maybe AI will be able to do that in another couple of years, and that might be a death knell for a lot of business for voice actors. So I'm I'm glad I've been in it as long as I have.
Yeah.
That you mentioned AI, that's really interesting because it's upending a lot. That's one industry where they're cutting a lot of. I'm thinking it's going to be really hard for junior voice actors to start getting work.
Sure, sure. And where they're probably going to end up using it if they're not already, TV promotions, industrial narration for, for small to mid-sized to large companies. Hire a voice actor to perform. Now they can just type a script and have a voice come through the computer in breaths and pause and you know, that kind of it'll actually put stuff like that
Wow.
in. So it's
That's
going to
interesting.
crush. Yeah, it's going to crush some jobs. You know,
Yeah.
the shorter the better. Right now they're good,
Right.
but the shorter the better.
Right.
The script. You know, if it's really long, it starts to sound a little bit like a commercial, like an AI. You know, we're a long way from the way they used to
How
sound on our
quickly,
computers. You know, so
it's amazing how quickly like AI has progressed. Like you remember GPS had the really robotic voice, like turn left. It's hard to distinguish from actual
right,
human.
right. Yeah, now
Like
Siri's kind of sounding.
Yeah.
foresee like people who are just getting into the industry, how do they distinguish themselves to be able to get the job, and how do they that they're not replaced by?
That's an interesting question, and I can't answer it all because things are changing too rapidly, Kevin. Um, Here's the thing, though. You have to do exactly what I've done in that you have to stay on top of what's current, what's relevant, what's hot. You have to retool. You have to constantly be reworking your game, you know? And the way to get their name out there, that's always going to change. When I first started, man, I was able to get out there with my stuff and get in somebody's office and sit down with them and say, "Hey, man, what's going on?" Shake their hand and look them eye to eye and get to meet them, get to know them, get to know about their wife and family and what jobs they're working on. And here, man, take a bunch of my cassettes. Yes, that's how far back I go, kids. I'd take a bunch of my cassettes and set them down. And I had a tchotchke. It was I'd give them a bunch of bubbles and bubble toys. And, they would pass it all around the office. And hey, man, get this guy. That's it. Word of mouth it used to be all word of mouth. And I
Wow.
built my business on that. And after a while I'd say, "Hey man, I've got some new stuff. I want to come and meet you. Can you get anybody else in the office?" And I'd come in, there'd be a room of 5 or 6 people, all people
Yeah.
that could hire you. And you'd sit down and meet them and say, "Hey man, what's going on?" "Okay, well, here's my stuff." And eventually it went from just cassettes to CDs to videos. We'd sit in the conference room and I put a video up with compilations of my commercials. And they were
Okay.
like, "Oh shit, I didn't know that was you. That's great, man. Well, I'll keep you in mind." And all of a sudden you're working for them too. It's very different now. It's very uh it's not elusive. It's reclusive. There's the word I was looking for. It's very reclusive.
Reclusive.
It's because now if you pick up the phone to call someone, they're like, "Dude, are you seriously calling me right now?" Um, you know,
Yeah. Our
um,
world has really changed a lot. A lot of people
yes,
like to hide behind technology. Like
exactly.
I know some people that I used to talk to them on the phone, and now they'll only text. If I call them, they won't pick
Hmm.
up, but I'll text them and they'll text right back. And I'm like, what is that all about?
Yeah, there's a comedian like 4 or 5 years ago, and it was hysterical and so true of of the younger generation. He goes, "So the other day I sent a text to my friend, and he calls me, and I'm like, dude, why are you calling me? I sent you a text."
Right.
And it's so true. But I mean, just saying, so now it's what do you do? LinkedIn, or you have to get noticed by being, an influencer of some sort. You have to be an influencer with your voiceover demo, I guess. So I'm LinkedIn mostly. Every time I get something new that's cool, I'll post it and I'll spread it around so that people can see it and see my styles. That's how you and I met, Brian.
Yeah.
So,
What kind of reach do you get on LinkedIn? Because I know lately I'm not really getting very many impressions.
well, it depends. I mean, if I put it in the right channels, you have to create channels to get it out to. Like if it's a promo, I'll put it out broad, and then I'll send it to the people that I do promos with. If it's commercials, I'll put it out in the people in the ad world, and
Yeah.
I'll put it out broad, and then I'll put it into all the ad world people that I'm tied into, so that they can see it. And of course, it's like anything else. Advertising, you don't know how much of it's working and how much of it's not. If they
Correct.
reach back to you and say, "Hey, I've been listening to this commercial you just did for Nissan. I think you're a ringer for something I'm going to be auditioning, or I'm
Yeah.
just, or I'll just reach out to your agent and book you." Blah blah blah. So
Okay.
that's how it works.
To kind of take it back to the point about AI, I think the one thing AI can't do, because AI pretty much copies the data it's fed, is like originality. So I think being original, injecting humanity, that's one way to stay ahead because it can only copy you after the fact. So if you're always coming up with something new, something different, then at least you'll be somewhat ahead of the curve.
Right. The one thing AI still can't add is emotion. It still can't.
Yeah.
It can't riff. It can't. It
It's
cannot riff.
dry. It's
It's it.
dry.
It is dry. It can't. It can't riff. It can't come up with anything new on the spot. Or oh wow, what if we did this?
It
And
can't
you're not
it
even saying it out loud.
basically it can't improvise. AI
Right.
can't
It
really
cannot
improvise
improv.
in the way that humans do.
Right. I mean, when I've come up with improvs and people, said I plussed it, they keep it. A computer just still cannot do that.
Yeah.
Not like that. Not like that. They can enamor it with a human quality. And it's the difference between, and I know you guys are probably, I don't know if you guys are into music, but it's the difference of listening to the original album on vinyl and then listening to it on
Yeah.
CD and then you listen to it on vinyl. There's something there, man. There's a warmth on that record. There was
Yep.
a reason it's vinyl. That vinyl is still warmer, and that people your age
People
group are
still
going back to
buy it.
vinyl. Yep.
People
Well,
still
they're going
buy
back
it.
to vinyl.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm
So,
an audiophile, so I know people love the record player.
I mean, there's a difference between analog to digital. And I think it's the same thing. We're analog and AI is digital, you know?
Yeah.
Yep, something gets lost in the digital translation. Like it's colder. There might be more clarity, but the warmth is kind of missing. So you're missing the body. You're missing something that really connects you on another level to the music or whatever it is you're listening to.
Yeah, man.
And
Yeah,
I,
agreed. Totally.
I know they try to emulate it digitally now with plugins, but still, I don't think it's necessarily the same thing.
Right, 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 right. And I use Pro Tools to record myself, and I
Right.
will add a few things. Did I lose you?
No, 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 we're still here.
Okay, okay. Uh, I use Pro Tools to record myself for auditions and for gigs. And I'll add a few, EQs and a compressor, but I don't want to get too crazy with it, because they want to add their own secret sauce.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
and there we used to record to reel,
Yep.
Right.
and there's even a different sound from that to now. Yes, it's cleaner, but I mean, reel to reel had a warmth that digital just does not have.
Yes, on the process of like mastering this podcast, I've come across like plugins that try to emulate that sound.
Right, right. I've got one in Pro Tools. It's called reel to reel or something like that, or reel
Like
or something like that.
tape machines.
Yeah, yeah.
Kind
It
of
tries to emulate
warms
that sound.
it
Hmm.
warms everything up a bit.
Well, I mean, if I sing something, I'll add that. But
Yeah.
if I'm doing voiceover, like I said, it's very minimal. I'll put some EQ into it and a compressor, and that's pretty much it. If I'm doing a really smoky promo, for CW or something like that, if it's a dark and stormy commercial for CW, something like that,
Yeah.
I'll add a little bit of echo, just a touch, so that it slaps and pops.
Now, what about like a stereo widener? Would that be used on
No.
vocals or not
Well,
really?
not me. Not by me. I'll
Not
let
you.
them do that.
Okay.
I'll let them do that. Well,
Yeah.
and when I first start doing promos for somebody, I'll say, "Hey, I'm going to send you my stuff naked, and then I'll send you stuff with my juju on it, and you tell me if you like it." And they
Right.
said, "Dude, definitely send it with your plugins. Your stuff's a lot better than what we have here."
Oh,
So,
wow.
so yeah, okay, great. Because I don't want to mess with their, if it's a big network, they have a lot of cool toys. So, but
Oh,
smaller
yeah.
stations, they don't have that.
They just don't have the resources.
Correct, correct.
Yeah,
Or
those plugins.
they don't have A-list engineers either. I mean, people
Yeah.
from Paramount and from TBS and from Max, they can afford to hire a killer engineer
Oh,
or
yeah.
outsource it to a killer engineer. That's
Right,
why it sounds
right.
so crisp.
Yep, those plugins get expensive. It's like hundreds of dollars for just one. Like I bought
Yeah,
a few of them.
yeah.
Yeah, they are expensive. Like
Like
waves.
something.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
the Waves bundle, you bet.
Yep.
Waves, yeah.
I've been getting into Fab Filter lately. Fab Filter, Oic Sound, I think that's what they're called. And
Yeah,
a few
yeah.
others.
Well, there's
Yeah.
one called the VOG, and I tried using it, and it's too much. It's called VOG, the Voice of God,
Oh, wow.
and you can get it in Pro Tools, and I'm like, yeah, I don't like it. It's like makes my voice sound fake, you know?
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah. If you do too much processing, it starts to sound robotic.
Well, no, it's not robotic. It's like it's like me trying to sound. I'm not kidding. It's like me. It's like trying to make me sound like James Earl Jones. That big voice. I'm just like it's like oh, no,
Yeah.
no. What are you doing to me?
What are you doing? Yeah.
So I know you have your own studio. What kind of mics do y'all prefer? Like Lawton Audio or Neumann?
Well, I was going to try to use my Sennheiser with you, but apparently your stuff just doesn't like it. The Sennheiser's killer. I use a Sennheiser shotgun. And then I use a Neumann. But I keep hearing from friends that are using this new universal mic, this modeling mic. It's a digital. Well, I know more than Universal's making it, but they bought the company that started it. But it's a modeling mic that you can literally kind of using your computer swipe through whatever mic you want it to sound like, and it sounds just like it. And
Wow.
not only that, but it'll read the room and say, okay, you got too much slap. I'm going to bring it in a little bit. It'll actually, you set it up and say, okay, read my room. So it'll read the room and try to make the mic sound as good as it can, even if your room isn't perfect. And it'll
Okay.
make the mic sound amazing.
Well, I've never heard of that. That's really interesting. But I guess
Yeah.
that's the progression of microphone technology.
Yep.
And
I
what
have a
did you say it's called?
go ahead. I will call it up for you. I have a buddy that's probably one of the, he's retired now, but he's
Yeah.
was one of the best jingle producers ever. And I put up something. I said, "Hey, what do you guys think of um, this particular microphone?" Well, he got on the phone and called me. It's called the Sphere DLX, the Universal Audio Sphere DLX. And he called me and said, Timmy, he goes, I gotta tell you, I bought one of these Universal Audio Sphere DLXs. He goes, I have a $20,000 microphone that this thing pantses.
Wow.
Wow.
He said I have a 50-year-old ribbon mic that I used to use exclusively. He goes, the kind that Sinatra used to sing in, and he goes, all those guys used to sing into this mic. He goes, it was 20.
Wow.
He goes, I can set this thing to sound like it. He goes, and it sounds clean and better than that mic.
That's amazing.
Wow.
You know. Well, somebody's got a dog, an angry dog.
Yeah, they're going a little crazy right now. But yeah,
Well,
kind of take. Oh, go ahead.
you tell that dog I said.
Yeah.
Yeah, looking at the computer now.
Who's here? He's running.
Yeah. Who's that? Who's that?
But yeah, I think like just those kind of moments, AI, they can't replicate the humanity of it all. Like me and Brian, a lot of times we like to talk about how back in the day, we're both like around 40. I'm 40. I believe Brian's 38, 37.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just turned 38 on the 19th.
Okay, so you guys
Yeah,
are really old.
yeah, we're up there.
So we're from the generation where when we're in high school, no one had cell phones.
Right.
Like I used to describe it like, okay, so I had a flip phone that my mom had bought me for emergency. So, let's say I missed the bus and I need a ride home from school. I can go ahead and turn on that cell phone, flip phone it open, and make like a minute or two call. But it was so expensive back then.
Oh
We
yeah.
weren't actually using phones how we do today, or even text. There was no text messaging at first. And then when they did unroll or roll out the text messaging, it was quite expensive at first.
Oh yeah, man. Oh yeah, it was. Yeah, and I remember, when the mobile phones really started coming out as mobile phones that you could afford, you used to have to put a bag in your car and plug it in. And you had to punch it. There was no antenna on the cars yet. It was a bag you put in the car, and it had a wired, a handset, and it was really cool. I was
Right.
like, wow, I'm in the car in Wisconsin, and I'm calling somebody in Chicago.
Right.
So yeah, we all remember that.
Now, we kind of have like a mini supercomputer in our hands, and it's really convenient. But I feel like the proliferation of technology kind of took away from people coming together, talking in person, and that removes a lot of richness from life. Like, who's going to remember talking in some chat room, like 20 years later?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
we come from the generation we used to get together with your friends.
Oh, yeah.
And I really do feel like, some of that was taken away from these kids. They don't know,
Well,
I love what Bill Maher said. He goes, guys don't even know how to meet girls anymore. You know, he,
it's
he,
true.
he goes, go out, get shot down a few times and, and finally meet a real actual girl.
Right. Right. I
you
mean,
know, I,
me and Kevin often talk about, back when we were kids, like 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, you go outside and every other kid is outside,
right.
so you might have 20 kids playing basketball on one street. You go down a couple blocks, you got 30 kids on bikes. Go down another couple blocks, you got kids playing with Pokemon cards and marbles. Like, there was just kids everywhere when we were
Sure.
young, and they were outside. And now, when you drive around neighborhoods, even during the day, you don't really see anyone. Maybe you see one kid on a bike, but not these huge groupings of kids like it used to be in me and Kevin's day.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the photo I saw. A friend of mine showed me. He said it was a bunch of Stingray bicycles laying on one kid's front lawn, and it said the original chat room.
Yep, that's
Exactly.
true.
Exactly. No, it's sad though. It's sad that, phones have taken away a lot of richness. Like Kevin's saying,
Yes,
like,
yes,
who's
yes,
going
and
to remember 20 years later, oh, I was talking to this chat bot and it told me that I'm funny and that I'm great. Like,
mhm,
these chat bots just like chat us up. They're designed to appease us, to make us happy. And
absolutely.
that's not the best training. I mean, you think about growing up, if you had a problem with someone, you had to slug it out, or you had to talk it out, with these chatbots. They just want to make you happy. They just want to give you the right answer from day one. And I think it's really going to mess with people's psyche, mess with people's brain.
I unfortunately, I think it has, Brian. I think the richness of life is gathering together in real time, and and
Yes.
what these have instilled is a sense of, again, reclusiveness and fear.
Fear.
Mm.
Fear, or at least nervousness to say, okay, well, what if they don't like me? I just can't
Right.
handle that. Or what if she
Right.
shoots me down? I just can't handle that. Learn how to handle it, man. That's life. You
That's
know,
life.
that's
Yeah.
life. And it's the same thing in a job. Your boss isn't always going to say yes, and it's the same thing in being out in the world with your friends, or yes, trying to meet that girl. It's not real easy to do it with a chat bot or a chat room, or and you don't even know if it's real or not, which is always kind of a weird thing for me. But you
Sure.
know, a smile and a hello gets you a long long way in the world.
Like, for me, thinking back to my first job, I'm a musician, I'm a drummer. My
Awesome.
first job as a drum teacher, I knew a kid who took guitar lessons from this one guy one town over. And he was like, yeah, I think he's looking for a drum teacher. You should, go in there and introduce yourself. So I walked in, I had a CD with some of my playing on it. I had like, just me playing solo and then me playing with a band. So I had that on like a CDR, Burn CDR. And then I just kind of went in, shook the guy's hand, look him in the eyes, say, hey, this is who I am. This is kind of what I sound like. I'm interested in teaching. And he didn't hire me on the spot, but
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, he was like, I really appreciate that old school mentality of, coming in, shaking hands.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of thing does not exist anymore.
Right.
Largely, it
Right.
doesn't really
Right.
exist anymore. And I think that's a shame.
Right. Right. And the funny thing is what I was speaking about before earlier, about me being able to call someone and set up a meeting with them while
Right.
they just don't have time to do the meeting. If they're of a certain age, I still don't have a problem giving them a call, and saying, hey man, I'm going to send my stuff through LinkedIn to you, or I'm going to email you my stuff. I just want to say, hey, what's going on? And ask them, what's going on in their life and what's going on at work, you know? I think that goes a long way to letting them know that you're real and that you're credible and that you're personable. And it gets back to what we were talking about. It's analog versus digital.
Because like what we're doing right now in this very moment, I can't see an AI being able to replace me and Kevin as co-hosts,
Right.
because we're improvising, we're listening, we're asking questions based on the information given, the responses given. We're kind of sitting there and we're just freestyling and we're going at it. An AI, I think maybe one day an AI will be able to do that, but I
Mm-hmm.
think we'll be long gone by that time.
Oh, sure, sure. Yeah, I would imagine so. I mean, and I think there is a place for AI. I love that it's going to be able to help us make medical and scientific leaps and bounds. Rather quickly, and it's going to search reams and reams of data to help us find cures for cancer and things like that. Or solve complex scientific problems that we were like, oh, it figured it out. We've been working on this
Yeah.
for 20 years and it figured it out. So it
Yeah.
has its place. There's no
Like a
doubt.
Goodwill Hunting moment.
Yes, absolutely. Great movie. Great movie.
Yep.
Love that movie.
I think it's awesome, like you mentioned, for if it's being used as a tool to discover things, but when it's being used to try to replace humanity, that's when we have the issues there.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Well, gents, do you guys open this up to people asking questions, or because it is a live thing, or not? Are
Yeah,
people
yeah,
actually
we
listening
do.
to us live?
Yeah, but it doesn't look like anybody has any questions right now. But if they
Okay,
did, but
that's all
yeah,
right.
until
That's all right.
somebody does pop in with a question, just to kind of continue on with that same note of conversation, I think that what really makes humanity deep and rich is our experiences, and AI, it doesn't experience anything. It can maybe attempt to mimic it, but like us meeting in person with our friends and family, forming those memories, that's really what made life rich. And I think it's even reflected in like the movies, like the 80s, 70s. You had a lot
Sure.
more like character movies like Predator, Aliens,
Yeah.
all of these different series, and we don't really have that now, it seems like.
Right, right. Well, and I think a lot of that has to do with where people are, what their attention spans, which is for me another thing that computers and the bots and a lot of the platforms have kind of stolen from us and from youth. What's important is being liked and getting likes
Well,
instead of
yeah, and take a
you know
look at something like TikTok. You
yeah,
have these 15-second videos, 30-second videos, and that's about the attention span that you're going to get from someone nowadays. Like they can watch a 20-second clip, but now they're like, all right, now on to the next one, on to the next one. It's like
right.
very ADHD in a way.
Right, exactly. And I go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I was just gonna say, kind of like how you were mentioning about dating. TikTok. I think that reflects the current dating market too. Like, we're swiping every 10 seconds. I don't like this. Swipe, swipe, swipe. I don't like this. Swipe. Like people are not
Yeah.
sitting through and really learning the person before they say, "Oh, let me move on to the next one." So life is ADHD all around now.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I think that's it's hurting people. I think it's hurting their ability to get out and reach out and get outside of a box. Getting back to improv, that's basically what it helps you to do is get outside of a box. Think outside of the box. Move outside of the box. Um,
Yeah,
and I think that's one of the great things about being an artist is because you constantly have to think outside the box,
absolutely.
um, about what's new and what's next and what someone hasn't done. My mentor, God bless him, he's gone now, but my mentor said, "Look at what everybody else is doing, study it, learn it, and then don't do that."
That's
And it's
interesting.
like that with music, like I'll listen to a record, like John Coltrane, I love Supreme, and
Yeah,
I'll get something out of the drums from that. And then I'll just kind of riff on it. I'll freestyle and make my own version of it because that's one of the amazing things about art. You could take something and not copy it per se, but you could take the general essence of it, the general vibe of it, and make it your own, which I think is the great thing about music and art.
yeah, absolutely, dude, absolutely. Okay, so favorite drummer?
Probably Tony Williams. You know who the Tony
Oh, I
Williams
sure
is?
do. I sure do.
He
Wow.
played with Miles Davis when he was 17.
Yeah, man. I think didn't he play with Genesis too?
Not sure, but he had the Tony Williams Lifetime, which
Yeah,
is
yeah,
jazz fusion, some really good jazz fusion.
yeah.
What do
Well,
you listen to?
if you're talking about jazz, I would say one of my favorites is definitely either Lenny White or Billy Cobham. I love Billy
Oh,
Cobham.
Billy Cobham, yeah, or like Elvin Jones.
Yeah, yeah. If for rock and roll, I'm sorry, but I don't think anybody can beat Neil Peart.
What about you? Like Ringo?
Um, you know what? I like his son better. He's just he's got a little more something something. Ringo was a freaking human metronome. No doubt
Yeah,
about it. He was a
yeah.
human metronome. There was nobody that was steadier than Ringo. But his son played with the Who. I saw him with the Who, and I also saw him with Led Zeppelin, and I was
Oh
blown
wow,
away by how good that kid is.
wow.
Phil Collins' son is now playing in bands.
Oh, he is really.
Yeah, yeah. There's a whole documentary about him and his dad just sitting there looking at going through all of his old drum kits, and
Wow. So,
they're
like,
sitting down and talking.
what do you like to listen to these days?
My list my I listen to such a broad variety of music. I'll listen to anything from folk music like old Crosby, Stills and Nash to Joni Mitchell, the '60s eras,
Yeah,
to Led Zeppelin, all the way to back to what I was just saying. I have a good friend of mine. I don't know if you've ever heard of Kurt Elling, but he's a friend of mine, and I still love the old jazz. I love Al Di Meola. I just saw him in concert not too long ago.
nice,
So yeah, I'm very diverse when it comes to music, and I
awesome.
love classical too. Actually,
Oh, me too. Chopin,
Mozart. I love Four Seasons from Vivaldi. All right, we're leaving Kevin out now. Come on,
Brahms.
Kevin.
Yeah,
What about you? What's your music?
uh, yeah, I'm into I kind of like jazz fusion. I like soul, funk. That's
Yeah,
really what I'm into. Like,
that's my wife, man. She loves soul and funk.
You like Kevin? You like Sam Cooke?
Oh,
yeah, he's
sure.
pretty good. I really like Willie Hutch, Bobby Womack, like stuff
Yeah,
like that.
Bobby Womack's great.
Very nice.
Frankie Beverly and Mays. It's kind of sad that all the legends are passing, and I never got a chance to watch them. So,
Yeah, I say what you want about him, but I'm really bummed I missed Michael Jackson.
Oh, I
oh yeah,
know.
I did
It
get to
would have
see
been amazing to see him. Yeah,
live. I did get to see the
live.
Michael Jackson Experience live in Chicago. Wow, these guys were good. Every single one of them. What they do is they start with Michael as a kid. Well, it's basically all around Michael trying to perform one of his last concerts, the
Okay.
Pepsi concert,
Yeah.
and it goes through his whole life. And each kid that does him as a child as a 10-year-old, as a teen, as when he met Q. Every one of them were brilliant. And they sounded just like him, danced just like him, looked just like him, and the whole cast behind him was just like, wow. And the music was out of this world. So it was
That's
almost like I
amazing.
got to see him.
Yeah,
It was
that's awesome.
absolutely iconic, like seeing the moonwalk for the first time. That blew
Yeah.
kids' minds.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Or remember
Absolutely.
that video? I think it was called "Scream" with his sister.
I don't know. No.
It's like kind of
I'll
like a
have to look it up.
virtual reality thing, and
You mean with Janet Jackson?
yeah, Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson. I think it's called "Scream."
Okay.
Do you
I'll have to look
do
for
you
it.
know that, Kevin?
Uh, I will probably remember it if I see it, but I can't recall that off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's Michael, and Janet in the same video.
Cool. I'll have to look for that. Yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't do more together.
Well, guys, it looks like it's been about an hour. What do you want to sign off or do a sign off, or what do you want to do?
Yeah, I mean, we got like 10 minutes. So, I mean, if you can stay on, absolutely. But if you
Oh,
got to
sure.
go,
Oh, that's right, because we started late, didn't we?
yeah, yeah. A
Yeah, we
few
started a
technical
little bit
difficulties,
late.
but we still pulled through. So,
And,
yeah.
and,
Go
and you
ahead.
can cut out stuff too, right? If we're talking about stuff, you can cut stuff out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, good, good. Yeah, when I did my podcast, I recorded everybody in Pro Tools, and I did a lot of snipping and cutting. So,
Yeah. Yeah, Kevin
Yeah.
does all the mastering and the editing,
okay,
and my main thing is booking.
okay,
Like I reached out to you, so that's my main utility in all of this.
okay, cool.
Outside of just being the co-host.
Right, right, right. Very cool.
You kind of bounced all over the place, man. But just to get back to your voiceover work, like what are some of your favorite characters that you voiced?
Well, of course, the iconic 343 Guilty Spark from Halo. Um, uh, of course, he's one of my favorites. But I've done dozens of different bugs for Raid. I've done tons of characters for Keebler. I've been Keebler Elves. I've been Raid Bugs. I've been Applejack's Apple. You guys probably grew up watching that. I mean, it's insane. Some of the stuff I've gotten to do. I got to narrate a show for Science Channel for 10 years. That was just wonderful, called Outrageous Acts of Science. It still airs on, it still streams, but no, those are definitely some highlights. But I've had a lot of fun, and right now I'm the voice of a goat for Aflac.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm having a good time. I'm in
How
the
did you? So how did you in the very beginning? How did you get involved in voiceover and voice acting and all that?
um, I like to joke that I'm now getting paid for what I was getting thrown out of class for by the nuns. So
Right.
that's I was always a performer. I was always a singer. Let's just say that I knew at a very young age I was going to be a performer of some sort. I just didn't know I'd end up here. I thought for sure
Right.
I'd be in a rock band, and by now I'd be retired and have my own harem. Um, but here we are. These many years later, and I'm doing voiceovers, and I couldn't be happier. So yeah,
That's
it was
awesome.
always I acted all through high school and a little bit afterwards, and then I was in bands for almost 25, 30 years,
Oh wow,
and
what do you play?
sing. I'm a lead singer.
Oh, okay, vocals, right?
And then I started doing jingles, and jingles led me back into acting, doing voiceovers, and then I was
Yeah.
talking to a friend of mine. He said, "Dude," he goes, "jingles are kind of a dying breed thing." He goes, "You should get into this," and I did. So once in a while I'll do a jingle, not too much anymore, but I'm still doing voiceovers.
You like do you like the narration or the characters? Like, what do you really like out of everything
Character
that you?
development, absolutely. I mean, I love it all, but I mean, character development, to take something from nothing and breathe life into it, that I mean, for me, that's always been a big thrill. And really, all of it is that, to a greater or lesser degree. But I'm auditioning for cartoons right now that they're not even developed yet. So the characters are going to start from nothing, and eventually they'll be something or a somebody. I'm on a Marvel cartoon right now, and he was a brand new character, and they said you're the only one that read him like a real guy, and that's why we booked you.
Oh
So,
wow.
but I didn't sound like a robot. It's a robot, but I didn't sound like a robot.
Sure.
So that was one of the reasons. Those are the reasons why I still love to develop a character.
When I think back to, first becoming aware of voiceover work, like as a job, it brings me all the way back to probably the early 90s. You remember that movie, Mrs. Doubtfire?
I sure do.
At the
Robin Williams is
beginning,
brilliant.
the
He was
beginning of
brilliant.
Mrs. Doubtfire, when he's doing the parrot or some kind of bird, he's doing the voice, and then the bird is smoking, but he doesn't want the bird to smoke, so he goes off on some whole riff, some whole tangent, and the guy's like, "Look, what are you doing? Read the lines that you were given." And as a kid, I'm watching this, and I'm just thinking, "Wow, that's a job."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And it's funny that they did that because rarely will you read to picture. Almost never.
Oh,
So
interesting.
they just wanted you to see it,
Yeah.
see the end of it. You almost
Right.
never read a picture. You might if they said, "Hey, we replaced that line and we had to make his mouth move differently. So can you come in and read to that particular scene?" So you have to read to his
Right.
mouth. That's another thing. It's
Right.
called automated dialogue replacement. So
Okay.
yeah, that's another aspect of the job. There's so many little cool little gigs out there. There's audiobooks and ADR, and there's Walla. Walla is when you basically when you see three people sitting in a cafe talking, everyone around them is not really saying a word. They're just moving their mouths and laughing and falling back. They're not making a sound because you would never be able to hear the three people in a loud restaurant. They'd have to
Sure.
contend with every fork sound and every plate sound and they don't make a sound. All that is added in later. So that's what Walla is. So you'll get a group of 10 people around microphones and they'll just go, "Hey, hey, what's happening in Susie's life right now? Well, have you seen it?" And they'll just talk
Yeah.
and they add all that in later.
Oh
And it's
wow.
so specialized that some people have to have medical Walla, police knowledge Walla, courtroom Walla. I mean, you have to. I mean, some of these people are that specialized.
Very
Wow.
interesting.
Yeah, I had no
So
idea
yeah,
about that.
yeah, it's crazy. It's a crazy cool business. I just did a gig for NBC's Laid, and I was the voice of a video game that the kid was playing on TV,
Oh wow.
and they just dropped it in.
So let me ask, just for our listeners, kind of like one final question is, if you were to talk to the entry level guy or girl, the person who's green to the industry, the person who's just trying to break into voice acting or improv work right out of college or right out of high school, what would you recommend that they do? What's your number one tip?
Run away, run fast, run far.
Yeah.
No. Oh boy. I would say the first thing you want to do if you really are interested in this as a performance is to get into a professional acting school, a professional improv school. If voiceover is where you want to go, then you got to get, you can probably hit them up for a coach, and you can get together with a coach. You can even do it remotely if you live in a smaller city, and they can work on your chops and find the real you, and then they'll help you build a small sample reel that you can get out to agents and or managers, or you can start pushing it yourself, whatever you're comfortable doing. But that's basically the essence of it. But the first thing is become a great performer, because that's what it takes. um, anybody can read a script. It takes a little bit more to breathe life into it. You know what I mean?
Bring the life into it. Absolutely.
You have to breathe the essence of life into it. You have to find
Yeah.
the who, what, where, how, when. You know.
Brings me back to English class. Who, what, where, why, when, and like
Mm-hmm.
storytelling.
Yeah. There's ask all the questions, and once you get the answers, you go with it. And like I said prior, you might not be right, but you gave them a real performance. And here's the thing too, they might say, "Boy, she wasn't right for this, but she'd be great for that thing we're working on for craft, or she'd be
Yeah.
great for this cartoon we're working on in a couple months." You know,
Yeah.
she's not right for this, but she could be right for that.
And that's
So
acting in a nutshell. You go to audition for a role and you do great, but they're just not looking for that. They
right,
had a different idea in mind, and they might say, "Hey, you'd be great for this other thing, but not for this."
right, right. Well, they probably wouldn't even say it to him then. They'll say, "Thanks, we'll get you were really
Well,
great.
yeah,
Thanks, you were really great. We'll let you know."
yeah, the
And
typical LA response, right?
and I got to tell you, that's if you're face to face with them. I'm rejected every single day, several times a day, remotely, and I never know.
Remotely.
The only time I ever know I got a job is when my agent calls me and says, "Okay, be in your studio at 2 o'clock today. You got it."
Yeah.
That's it. you know. Whereas before, I used to go face to face and audition, which I kind of miss. And here's the reason why: because you could look them in the eye and they could say, "Dude, you were so close. What if you
Yeah.
just tried this?" That's gone now. When you had the producer, the guy that wrote the script, no matter what it is, commercial, cartoon, a video game, they're in the room on the other side of that glass. And they're like, "Dude, you're so close." That's how I got Halo. Tim,
Yeah.
that's all right. That's good. But what if we tried it like this? And I left the room and I said, "Do you have a drawing in this thing, or do you have a rendering?" And I looked at it and I said, "Okay, so now I'm going to take that and bring it back in there." As soon as I started talking, they said, "That's him. You got it."
Wow.
Again, that's gone. That's gone.
It's
And I miss
a
that.
new world. Yeah, we're
Yeah,
living
I
in a
miss
new
that.
world.
But
You
hey,
don't
guys,
get any feedback. Go ahead.
hey guys, we're at the top of the hour, man. I know we got to get on out of here. Did you want to leave the audience with any closing thoughts before we end the show?
Yeah. Always work on improving. Just spitball, man. Life is really an improv. It is. So just get out there, and if this is your craft, if this is your dream, don't let anybody get in your way. Don't let anybody stand in your way, and always believe. And no is just a maybe, you know?
Yeah, no,
No is just a maybe in disguise.
that's really great advice.
No is just a maybe in disguise.
A
Oh, yeah, that's
redirection.
awesome
A
advice.
That's right.
redirection. Yeah.
But yeah, we'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. We'll catch y'all next time. Peace.